The rain hammered against the windows of the penthouse office as Alexander Blackwood signed the contract that would change two lives forever. His steel-gray eyes showed no emotion as he slid the papers across the mahogany desk to the trembling man seated opposite him. "The debt is cleared," Alexander said coldly. "Your daughter arrives tomorrow." Thomas Hartwell's hands shook as he gathered the documents. "She doesn't know about our arrangement. Please, Mr. Blackwood. She's innocent in all this." Alexander's jaw tightened. The Hartwell family name had been poison to him for 15 years, ever since Thomas's brother had destroyed Alexander's father's business with lies and betrayal, driving the once proud man to an early grave. The fact that Thomas had gambled away his family's remaining fortune, accumulating debts that now belonged to Alexander, felt like poetic justice. "Innocence is a luxury your family forfeited long ago," Alexander replied. "She'll serve as collateral for your debts, nothing more." But as Thomas left, Alexander found himself staring out at the storm, wondering about the girl who would arrive tomorrow. Elena Hartwell. He'd seen her photograph in the files: dark hair, gentle eyes, a face untouched by the corruption that ran through her family line. She was 23, a kindergarten teacher who had no idea her father had just sold her to his greatest enemy. Elena arrived on a Tuesday morning, clutching a small suitcase and wearing a confused expression that made Alexander's chest tighten unexpectedly. She stood in the marble foyer of his estate, looking small and lost among the expensive artwork and crystal chandeliers. "I don't understand," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "My father said I had to come here to work off a debt, but I don't owe anyone anything." Alexander descended the grand staircase slowly, studying her face. Up close, she was even more beautiful than her photograph, but it was something else that caught him off guard: the genuine kindness in her eyes, the way she unconsciously stepped forward when she saw the housekeeper struggling with a heavy tray. "Your father owes me $12 million, Alexander said bluntly. "You're here to ensure he doesn't disappear before paying it back." Elena's face went pale. "$12 million? That's impossible. We don't have that kind of money." "No," Alexander agreed. "You don't. Which is why you'll remain here, under my supervision, until the debt is settled." He had expected tears, arguments, perhaps even an attempt to flee. Instead, Elena straightened her shoulders and looked him directly in the eyes. "I'll work," she said simply. "Whatever honest work you have, I'll do it. But I won't be treated as property." Something flickered in Alexander's chest: surprise, perhaps even admiration. He had planned to make her life difficult, to let her suffer for her family's sins. But the quiet dignity in her voice made him pause. "Mrs. Chen will show you to your room," he said instead. "We'll discuss your employment tomorrow." The first weeks were tense. Alexander had expected Elena to be like her uncle: manipulative, greedy, willing to lie and cheat to get what she wanted. Instead, she threw herself into whatever tasks he assigned with genuine effort. She helped in the kitchen, organized his library, and even assisted with his correspondence, displaying a sharp intelligence that impressed him despite himself. She never complained, never asked for special treatment, and never tried to manipulate him with tears or feminine wiles. She simply worked, read books from his library in the evenings, and treated everyone from the gardeners to the security staff with the same respectful kindness. "She's not what you expected, is she?" Mrs. Chen, his longtime housekeeper, asked. One evening as they watched Elena teaching origami to the groundskeeper's children in the garden, Alexander's expression remained neutral. "She's a Hartwell. I know exactly what she is." But even as he said the words, he wasn't sure he believed them anymore. The turning point came on a stormy Thursday night. Alexander was working late in his study when he heard piano music drifting through the halls. He followed the sound to the music room, where Elena sat at his mother's old piano, playing a haunting melody with tears streaming down her face. She stopped when she saw him, quickly wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry. I didn't think anyone would hear. I can go, don't?" Alexander said quietly. "Keep playing." Elena's fingers returned to the keys, and the music filled the room with a sadness that seemed to echo from the walls themselves. Alexander recognized the piece. It was the same melody his mother used to play when she thought no one was listening, during the dark months after his father's business had collapsed. "Where did you learn that?" he asked when she finished. "My mother taught me," Elena said softly, "before she died. She said music was the only thing that couldn't be bought or sold, that it belonged to anyone who needed it." Alexander felt something crack inside his chest. "My mother used to play that same piece." They sat in silence for a moment, surrounded by the ghost of old grief. Then Elena spoke again, her voice barely audible. "I know you hate my family," she said. "I know my uncle did something terrible to your father, but I need you to understand I never even met him. My father, he's weak, and he makes terrible choices, but he's not evil. He's just broken, like a lot of people." Alexander studied her profile in the lamplight. "And you think that excuses what he's done?" "No," Elena said firmly, "but I think carrying hate is like carrying poison. It hurts you more than the person you're angry at." Over the following weeks, Alexander found himself seeking out Elena's company. He told himself it was to better understand his enemy, but the truth was more complicated. She made him laugh with her observations about his stuffily formal staff meetings. She challenged him during their evening debates about books and philosophy. She brought light into rooms that had been dark for too long. He began to see how the other staff members gravitated toward her warmth, how she remembered everyone's birthdays and asked about their families. She transformed his cold, efficient household into something that felt almost like a home. The moment Alexander realized he was in love with her came on an ordinary Tuesday. Elena had been trying to fix a broken shelf in the library when it collapsed, sending books stumbling everywhere. Instead of calling for help, she sat among the scattered volumes and began reading passages aloud, doing different voices for each character. Alexander found her there, surrounded by books and laughter, and felt his heart stop. This was what he had been missing his entire life, not just love, but joy. "Pure, uncomplicated joy, Elena," he said, and something in his voice made her look up. "Alexander, is everything all right?" He knelt among the books beside her, studying her face as if seeing it for the first time. "Your father's death," he said slowly. "It's been cleared." Elena's eyes widened. "What? How?" "I cleared it months ago, actually. You've been free to leave since September. But why didn't you tell me?" Alexander reached out to touch her face, his thumb brushing away a tear she didn't know had fallen. "Because I was afraid you'd go, and I couldn't bear the thought of this house without you in it." Elena's breath caught. "Alexander, I know I have no right to ask," he continued, his voice rough with emotion. "I know I brought you here for all the wrong reasons, but somewhere along the way, you became the best part of my life. I love you, Elena, not as payment for a debt, not as some kind of revenge against your family, but as the woman who taught me that my heart wasn't as frozen as I thought." Elena's answer came not in words but in the way she leaned forward to kiss him, her hands cupping his face as if he were something precious and fragile. "I love you too," she whispered against his lips. "I have for months. I just thought. I was afraid you'd never see me as anything more than a pawn in your game against my family." Alexander pulled her closer, surrounded by scattered books and the wreckage of old hatred. "You were never a pawn," he said. "You were always the queen. I just took too long to realize I was playing the wrong game entirely." 6 months later, they were married in the garden where Elena had first taught origami to the children. Thomas Hartwell walked his daughter down the aisle with tears in his eyes, finally understanding that sometimes the greatest debts are the ones that lead us to exactly where we need to be. And Alexander Blackwood, who had spent 15 years planning revenge, learned that love was the only victory that truly mattered.